Welcome back to the Crypto channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is still rejecting from this massive area of resistance, while in the immediate short term, the price of Bitcoin is now once again retesting this crucial level of support, and at least for now, still finding support at this level, which we need to pay attention to, while the US stock market is now flashing a new warning signal in the short term, alongside Ethereum also still playing out this short-term warning signal, while the price of XRP is continuing to play out the rejection from this massive area of resistance. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just before taking a look at the Bitcoin and crypto charts today, taking a quick look at the US stock market. This is the S&P 500 index on the 1 hour time frame, and we can see that right now the 1 hour RSI is already once again getting close to overbought after we've now seen another pump towards new all-time highs. Because obviously over the last few days we played out this overbought signal here in the 1 hour RSI for the S&P 500 index, which ultimately caused or helped to cause this short-term pullback in the US stock market. Just a bit of a cool off over the next 1 to 2 days, and then a bit of sideways price action in the short term. And then, like I talked about in my last video, this pullback, this cool off is slowing down. We could start to see maybe a little bit of a rebound, and over the last 1 day, we've seen a decent rebound, in fact, above the previous high. But not only has this, of course, drawn the RSI towards the upside again, close to overbought, not there just yet, but close to overbought. Not only is this happening, of course, with the price creating a new higher high in the short term, the RSI, at least for now, is forming lower highs. Now, as of recording the video, we technically have one confirmation signal here, just one candle close, but basically we have a new bearish divergence flashing here on the 1 hour time frame for the S&P 500 index. And now, obviously, because we're heading into a weekend, the US stock market's closed over the weekend as usual, but in the new week, when the US stock market starts opening back up again, it's possible if this bearish divergence starts to play out as a usual bearish divergence, we could see just another short-term little cool-off. Remember, it's only a very short-term signal. It's only here on the 1 hour time frame, but just like this previous overbought signal played out over basically 1 to 2 days with a slight little pullback here, it's possible we could see something similar, not necessarily a pullback, maybe some sideways price action, but basically cooling off a little bit from all of the bullish price action if we are to play this out as a typical bearish divergence. And so obviously with this being a possible short-term warning signal for the stock market, that also means it's a bit of a warning signal in the short term for Bitcoin and crypto. So keep that in mind. We might not necessarily have a really bullish weekend with this basically being held over our heads for the weekend, waiting to see what's going to happen with the new week. And so with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin charts today on the weekly time frame, this has not changed over the last 1 day. So the super trend indicator is still sitting in the red, indicating a larger correction or a larger bearish market. And on this weekly Bitcoin price chart, we still have this massive bearish divergence. So once again, not yet invalidated over the last 1 day, but on a slightly smaller time frame here on the 3-day Bitcoin price chart, we technically still have a smaller or shorter term bullish divergence, which has also been actively playing out over the last couple of weeks, as we can clearly see here over the last couple of weeks. And so at least for now, this is also still currently active on the 3-day Bitcoin price chart. And if we're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin price chart, we can see that right now the price of Bitcoin is still playing out that struggle and that rejection from this exact area of resistance, which is still sitting in between around 92,000 to 94,000, but especially in the higher end of that area, around 93 to especially 94,000, we have a lot of resistance around there. And as for support to watch out for, if we're talking about this larger range that we've been in for over a month now, technically speaking, the support for this sideways price range is still sitting at around 85 to 86,000. But if we're zooming further into the short term, taking a look at the 6-hour Bitcoin price chart, we can see this previous level of resistance here, which was also previous support back here and is now once again acting as support. And this level is sitting at give or take $90,000. So especially in between around 89,500 to 90,500, but especially around that $90,000 level, that is still acting as major support in the short term. And so basically continue to expect the price to hold this level as support as a very likely scenario. And of course, I said in my last video, it's likely we'll either see a little bit more of a bullish relief or maybe a bit of sideways price action, but basically I don't expect a huge crash over the next next one day is what I said in my last video. And of course, over the last one day, for the most part, we did start off with a little bit more of a relief, but since then we have played out some choppy sideways price action. And so obviously over the last one day, we actually saw a second retest of this level of support again. And right now we are still finding support at that level, which is good news to pay attention to. So obviously continue to expect support at that level, and potentially over the weekend, we might see some somewhat boring price action, maybe the price remaining somewhat range bound for a little while here, while we're waiting to see what the US stock market does in the new week. And we also have a little bit of short-term resistance right here at around 91.3k to 91.5k. So keep that in mind. That's also a bit of resistance to pay attention to, but really the significant resistance is still sitting at give or take 94,000. And so those are my expectations in the shorter term and the key levels to watch out for moving forward for the price of Bitcoin. And of course, if you want to trade these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any crypto, you have to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange. And if you use the first link below this video in the description and in the pinned comment, that first link below this video will take you to this page right here over on the 2bit crypto exchange, which by the way is also a no KYC crypto exchange. You can access this exchange without any KYC. And currently there's still, just for the next couple of days, there's still a Christmas trading showdown happening over here with a 1 million USDT total prize pool. And so especially if you're trading crypto anyway or preparing to take the next trading opportunity, you might as well check this out and take advantage of this using that first link below this video. And remember, 2bit is also a no KYC exchange. But if you want another exchange out there that I also use myself to also claim some extra bonuses on, then in that situation, check out the second link below this video in the description and in the pinned comment, because the second link below this video will take you to this page right here over on the Pinex crypto exchange, where you can also take advantage of major bonuses. For example, if you make your account using the link below the video and then complete KYC, you get a 50 USDT bonus onto your Pinex account. And on top of that, there's deposit bonuses here. If you deposit as little as 100 USDT, you get a 100 USDT bonus on your account. If you deposit 10,000, you get a 1,000 USDT bonus onto your Pinex account. And so once again, if you're going to be trading crypto anyway or preparing to take the next trading opportunity, you might as well check this out. Take advantage of this effectively free money using that second link below this video to Pinex. But with that being said, taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, and right now we have a small amount of liquidity building below the price of Bitcoin at around 89,000 to 89.1k. And we also have a small amount of liquidity building at around 94.8k, and still a decent amount of liquidity building at just above 86,500. So keep that in mind. But the closest level that's to the price of Bitcoin right now is that 89.1k level approximately, which means it's possible, I'm not saying this is guaranteed, but it could be likely that at some point, maybe over the weekend, we could see a candle wick towards that liquidity to wipe out that liquidity. Not necessarily seeing a confirmed break below the support. That doesn't have to happen. We can see a candle wick towards the downside just as a liquidity grab. And then once again, at least based on the candle closes here, we still have a lot of support at around 90,000, give or take. So for as long as we're still confirming the candle closes above that level, for now, we're still holding that as support. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin and crypto funding rates, we can see that right now the Bitcoin funding rates have actually moved back towards the positive direction and are now relatively neutral. A lot of the funding rates are slightly below neutral, but pretty much neutral right now for the Bitcoin funding rates. And instead, if we're looking at the altcoin funding rates, we can see that some of these altcoins like Solana and XRP, the funding rates are actually starting to flip in the negative direction over the last one day, which means there's now an added premium to short these crypto assets. I explained this in more detail in my last video here on the channel, but basically the further the funding rates go negative, the more bullish that is for the crypto asset. The further positive they go in the positive direction above the neutral rate, which is 0.01%, the further above that, the more bearish that is. And so once again, some of these altcoins starting to flip negative in the funding rates. Bitcoin rates right now and Ethereum rates very, very neutral, very close to neutral. And if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin dominance chart on the daily time frame, right now the Bitcoin dominance is also still looking very neutral, kind of lacking momentum to either direction. And so obviously this has been telling us that we're most likely going to see relatively similar price action for a lot of the major altcoins out there as to what Bitcoin is doing. So not necessarily much better or much worse, just quite similar to what Bitcoin is doing. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the daily time frame, obviously Ethereum is once again following very similar price action to what Bitcoin is doing. First of all, over the last 1 week, around a week ago, we saw a run towards the upside in Bitcoin, and then over the last half a week, rejection from that resistance. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum, over the last 1 to 1.5 weeks, we saw a run towards the upside, and then over the last half a week, obviously a struggle and a pullback in the short term. And in fact, right now, as of recording this video, we're now retesting an important area of support for the price of ETH, and that's sitting at around 3,000 to 3.1k. So for now, still expect a lot of support in that area right there. And if we were to actually break below 3,000 with confirmation, so candle closes confirming below 3,000, and especially if we fail to get back above that level, in that situation, the next support would be at around 2.9k. And then I would expect a lot of support in between 2750 to 2.8k. But remember, we still have a lot of support in between 3,000 to 3.1k is the immediate area to focus on. And as for resistance, if we see any bounce here in the short term, I'd expect a decent amount of resistance in between roughly 3250 to 3.3k. And if we're zooming further into the short term, taking a look at the 3-hour Ethereum price chart, obviously right now this bearish divergence is technically still active. It is still influencing the price of Ethereum, and obviously over the last few days or so, we've been perfectly playing this out in the form of mostly a short-term pullback, and then over the last 1 day or so, a little bit of choppy sideways price action, considering right now the price is starting to run into this major support, which is of course supporting the price as expected. And so basically the price of ETH is still trying to play out this bearish divergence, showing some weakness in the shorter term and lacking bullish momentum. But while we're running into this support, that's basically helping to prevent more bearish price action or lower prices coming for the price of ETH, considering we're running into support. And in fact, right now the price of ETH is possibly starting to form a new bullish divergence, considering we have very slight lower lows starting to confirm here in the price, while we're seeing higher lows still currently forming here in the 3-hour Ethereum RSI. So obviously that's a possible bullish divergence starting to form just in the very short term here, but at least for now it's not yet actually confirmed. And so overall, honestly, I expect quite similar price action to what we just saw over the last 1 day. That will likely repeat at least over the next 1 to 2 days is a very likely scenario. And if we're taking a look at Solana on the daily time frame, obviously right now the price of Solana is continuing the rejection and a lot of struggle from my exact area of resistance, which is still sitting in between 143 to 147. But while we're still playing out that short-term rejection from this resistance, obviously right now this bullish divergence has also technically not yet been invalidated, which means it is still influencing the price here on the daily time frame, which means expect either some choppy sideways price action in the short term, or potentially at some stage, maybe in a week from now, for example, a little bit more of a bullish relief, maybe eventually another retest of this resistance. And so honestly, over the weekend, I actually expect most likely a bit of choppy sideways price action as a quite likely scenario just for the weekend here, especially if Bitcoin and Ethereum, etc. play out something similar as a very likely scenario, potentially just bouncing around somewhat sideways in the short term for the next 1 or 2 days could be quite likely for Bitcoin, therefore quite likely for Solana. And if we're taking a look at the price of XRP on the weekly time frame, technically over the last 1 day, not much has changed on this chart right here. We still have a massive bearish divergence to watch out for, which is technically still active on the weekly XRP price chart, which by the way, I actually warned about almost half a year ago, many months ago here on the channel, basically around the end of July, early August 2025. And so technically that is also still currently active on the weekly XRP price chart, but obviously more recently over the last couple of weeks, we did see a decent bounce from this strong level of support here at around $1.80. So that is still acting as support at $1.80. And if we're taking a look at the daily XRP price chart, obviously over the last couple of weeks, we played out this shorter term or smaller bullish divergence here, at least right up until we ran into this resistance, which is still acting as strong resistance for the price. And that's sitting in between around $2.30 to $2.40. And obviously, like I warned about when we were running into that resistance, I said while we're running into this resistance, we're also hitting overbought in the daily XRP RSI, which is a strong signal telling us we're most likely going to see a bit of a cool off or a bit of a pullback coming soon. And obviously, since then, that has what is played out here. Obviously, we've seen that short-term pullback over the last few days as expected, as warned about. And in fact, right now, the price of XRP is testing this Fibonacci level based on the previous Fibonacci level of support, which is still potentially acting as support, and that's sitting at around $2.05. So especially in between around $2 to $2.05, I would expect a lot of support around there on the price chart. And honestly, over the next 1 or 2 days or so, I start to expect the price of XRP to basically slow down a little bit, the bearish price action here, as we start to run into this major point of support here. So keep that in mind. Obviously, we saw a decent drop off over the last couple of days, a decent rejection from around $2.40, give or take, from this exact resistance right here. But now I start to expect a bit of a slowdown of the bearish price action as we're running into that support. But overall, for the weekend, we're most likely going to see a bit of weakness, kind of lacking bullish momentum. And if we're taking a look at the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, I expect something very similar for Chainlink, because technically speaking, this bullish divergence is still active on the daily Chainlink price chart. But just over the last 1 day, we've actually confirmed one daily candle close slightly below this key level on the price chart, which was a previous point of support. And right now that level is still sitting at around $13.30 to $13.50. And once again, we just now technically confirmed a daily candle close below $13.30. So especially if we fail to get back above that level very, very soon over the next couple of days, in that situation, that will likely start flipping into new resistance for the price of Chainlink. And the next support to watch out for would be sitting in between around $12.60 to $12.80. And below that area, we also have a lot of support at pretty much exactly $12. And once again, as I've been saying throughout the video, especially for some of these altcoins here, just for the weekend, I expect a lot of weakness, lacking bullish momentum, possibly a little bit more bearish price action now that we've just broken below a key point of support. But overall, I don't necessarily expect a massive crash, just a bit of weakness really over the weekend. Lacking bullish momentum is a very likely scenario. And remember, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out those links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim the massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can trade these moves in the price of any crypto, no matter what direction the price goes, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.